make sure everything's good. Are you good?
Yeah.
All right. State your name, what you do.
Brent Greenwood, club baseball coach.
Hey guys, my name is Jordan Ham, and I'm an admissions counselor at Adrian College. We believe here at Adrian College that you should be exposed to new opportunities. While following your passion, and maybe even winning a national championship. My name is Jordan Ham. I actually was one of the kind of starters for the club baseball team. Talked to Docking, talked to Duffy, ended up getting it started. Played on the team for a year and a half. Now I work at admissions for Adrian College, and so I decided to help coach. I'm already here, why not? So that's kind of who I am and what I do.
I mean, it was definitely a new experience. Like I said, I mean, there was nothing really, set in stone. I mean, we were essentially winging it, to start out. But yeah, connecting with Jordan. I mean, Jordan, even when he played for the year and a half, he was almost like a player coach. He definitely helped out kind of organizationally because it was, mainly his idea. I was just kind of orchestrating everything as the administrator, essentially.
Yeah, enjoy the show. Yeah, we made it, you just talking. If they hate it, you know they're watching. Enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show. Yeah, we made it, they always talking. If they hate it, you know they're watching. Enjoy the show, enjoy the show, enjoy the show.
So I actually played on the NCAA team my freshman year. My sophomore year, I had to take a year off just because of grades. They were kind of rough, and so took a year off. And when I did that, I actually had some other friends that played with me. They ended up taking a year off as well. So kind of in the middle of sophomore year, got my grades back up and had an idea. I still want to play baseball, and a lot of my friends also wanted to play baseball. But kind of going into the year, I knew that just keeping my grades up and playing NCAA was a lot. And so I reached out to some friends that I knew played at Western Michigan, and I asked them how it worked and everything else like that. So I kind of did a little research after that, sent an email to President Docking, and within a week he was like, hey, come into my office on this date, we'll talk about it. And going into it, I was like, look, we're going to pay for everything, we'll take care of everything. And he was like, no, we got you, if you want to do something, we want to take care of it. And so awesome job by President Docking. And then kind of moving forward, ended up meeting with Duffy. He was a little bit part of the interview process for hiring a coach. But going into my junior year, I wasn't sure if we were going to have it, anything else like that. And just in between sophomore and junior year, got kind of confirmation that we were going to be able to start that. And it was actually really cool just seeing it from the beginning to end, helping out a lot of the kids, helping out a lot of the students here, my friends that kind of wanted just a second chance with not as much time going into it compared to NCAA. So I mean, the whole idea was to have fun and still have time to enjoy college and study and everything else like that.
I graduated from Adrian College in 2014. I actually played on the NCAA baseball team. Came back here, got hired in January of 17. When I sat down on day one, there was no team, there were no uniforms, there was no league. Basically, that was my job to find where we were going to play. Started out researching, found the NCBA, which has been a great organization for us, National Club Baseball Association. They kind of handled the rest as far as, putting us into a conference and, letting us know, when stuff was due as far as fees and all that stuff. But it was definitely a challenge, especially recruiting that first class when there were, we basically had a ghost team and I was trying to get guys to come play for it. The first year was definitely interesting. We had, a pretty big mix of guys. We had some guys that I recruited in that first recruiting class. We had some guys that, just came from the school. And then we had another group of guys that played for Coach Rainey on the NCAA team. So at first, the team was definitely 3 separate groups. But it was really cool as the season went along to, see them come together.
You get a lot of kids that are like, club baseball, is that like intramural? And I'm like, no. Our first year, we got lucky. We had a lot of stud players. But moving past it, we moved up a division. That made it a lot more difficult. It's competitive. we played Ohio State. We asked one of their players. They have 3 club teams. They have a Division I, Division II, and Division III. And they were like, oh, how many people try out? We have 30 kids that come out. We have 200 kids try out for it. And we're like, wow. And so that's what started it. I had a friend that played at Western. And it's competitive to a point. And it's just a little bit more laid back. So, this year we're playing a lot of teams that are a lot more competitive. We are struggling against some of them, but I think that you learn something from every single game. And it definitely helps us out just kind of processing.
I think that people should know that it's a really competitive organization. I think sometimes club baseball gets that stigma where, it's just 10 guys that show up and they're a bunch of buddies and they don't really care what's going on or respect the game. Granted, in our 3 years, have we played a few of those teams? Absolutely. But basically, I've used the last 3 years to kind of hone in the schedule and schedule those teams that have 25 guys. They have a coach. They respect the game. They take the game seriously. So I would say that, we have guys all the time that we face that I think could compete, on the NCAA level for sure. They most likely just wanted to go to a big school. Maybe it was their dream to go to, an Ohio State or a Michigan. Then baseball was kind of just a second option. But it's very competitive. I would say that's the one thing that I think people probably don't know. Midway point, you could definitely tell that the guys were starting to gel together, and I definitely could tell that we had some really good players. Obviously, those guys that had come down from Coach Rainey's team, they didn't get their chance up there, but you could tell they were hungry and they wanted to play, and you could tell that they could play. So the midpoint, you could tell there was something brewing, but we still hadn't clinched anything, so you didn't know if we were going to make the playoffs. We hadn't played Eastern Michigan yet, and then towards the end, after we played Eastern Michigan, who won the conference the year before, we beat them 3 games in a row. It was a little bit of a chippy series, and after we beat them, I think everyone started to realize this was our conference to lose essentially. Championship or bust was more towards the end of the year. I think when we first started, it was kind of no one really knew what to expect. But yeah, definitely as the season went along and we figured out kind of who we had on the team. I had guys that were essentially bench players / role players that, in the last 2 seasons probably would have been in the starting lineup. And as we got to the district playoff and we realized that we were playing for something, I think it became, we're here after school, we might as well win, we might as well win.
Going into it, we had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea at all. And so that first year, once we started stacking on those wins and realizing where we could go, that's exactly what it was. And it's kind of funny, my girlfriend actually didn't even go to the national championship just because in her head she was like, no way first year you're ever going to do that. And so when we won one conference, moved on, we're like, all right, well, we have 4 games left to prove it, and 3 games, whatever. And so it definitely was interesting just going from realizing we had nothing and it was just something fun to do, to realizing there was a lot on the line and kind of building that culture and building the program as it is.
So the playoff was interesting because we actually hosted the playoff and it was actually after graduation. So the guys were here basically just to practice and then play those 3 games that we were going to play in the district playoff. So, making sure that we practiced enough, but also, giving them some free time because obviously the school year just ended. It was fun, though. The guys, you could tell, because it was just baseball-oriented, it was definitely fun. Edinburgh came in. We actually beat them the first game. We played 2 games on Saturday. We could have, clinched that. Actually, sorry, no, we played 1 game on Saturday, and we played 2 games on Sunday. We won the first game. We thought we were going to show up on Sunday and just win the second game and, move right along. But they came out and, punched us in the mouth. And then it was, 1-1, winner take all for the third game. Thankfully, we showed up and won that game. Winning the national championship, I don't think it really honestly set in until the following year. We were still kind of just riding that high. Everyone was coming together as a team. Going to the World Series, I actually sent the guys a little paragraph that New Hampshire, they posted, and it basically said that they just were going to walk through the World Series, win the World Series, and they knew that they would move up to Division II after they won the World Series. So I sent that to the guys, and the group of guys we had, I felt like that would really fire them up, and I think it did. We played New Hampshire in the semifinal. We won 1-0. Kyle Stratton threw a complete game, I think 3-hitter. And then the day of the championship, actually, New Hampshire's coach was running through our hotel. We stayed in the same hotel, and he was banging on their doors, and he was yelling, "Get up, we have 2 games to win." And I know some of our guys definitely didn't take that too well. Ended up going out and beating them again 4-0 in the championship, and they deflated pretty quickly after we scored 2, I think, in the 4th inning, and then we scored 2 again in the 6th, and that really deflated their sails.
It was surreal for us, mostly because, we still had friends on the NCAA team, and they're like, "Oh, great, you're doing well, you have a winning record, blah, blah, blah." And so, for us, it was a chip on the shoulder. And so when we won conference, we're like, all right, it's our conference. We beat some teams 3 times by 10. And so, but we had some struggles against some teams and still ended up pulling it out. That was, it was surreal just because we weren't sure what was happening. We were like, oh, we're winning games, but we aren't understanding what's the end goal or anything like that because we've never seen the end goal. So win the conference, go on and get into the tournament, and we just looked at some of the teams. One of the teams that we were eventually going to have to play was undefeated the entire season. Granted, we had some slip-ups and we lost a few games, but we were like, oh, okay, this is going to be a challenge for us. Our pitchers went into it unbelievable. I think we were out the entire tournament. We let up 0 runs. Incredible. And everything just kind of clicked. We knew exactly what our job was and what we were trying to do. Once again, it just comes back to that chip on the shoulder. We didn't care who we were playing, but we were going to come out and kind of do our mentality of baseball.
I would say my favorite moment, besides winning the national championship, was just seeing those 3 separate groups that I talked about kind of come together throughout the course of the season. Like I said, when we first started, there were guys that were, somewhat upset that they weren't getting playing time, and, they weren't quite filling into those roles that we needed them to. As the season went along and guys started to realize that we did have something special, by the time we got to the World Series, I would say in the World Series, in 3 games, we probably played 13 guys maybe out of, the 29 that went with us. But you would have never known that by looking in the dugout. Everyone was involved. Everyone kind of knew their role and what needed to be done for us to win.
There's a few, obviously, that come to mind. Mark, Kyle, all of our pitchers throwing a no-hitter at one point, which is awesome. Kyle, he threw one and we didn't even know it happened. I would say David Stewart, who didn't get a lot of playing time that year that we won the national championship. He was a senior. He played for Coach Rainey before. But he came in, and it was a windy day, cold windy day, and hit a grand slam shot, just a moonshot. Got home, went to the dugout, and goes, "That was fun." And we were like, "Dude, you do realize you hit a grand slam?" And he was like, "I did?" And it was just, once again, that's our mindset. We were just going up, hitting the ball. It didn't matter who was on, anything like that. We were just going up there doing it. And so that embodied it, because it was like, dude, you just hit a grand slam on a windy day with the wind blowing in. And you're like, oh, I hit a grand slam, cool. It was weird. It was very interesting. So that was one of my just funnier moments.
Adrian College has been great as far as, promoting club baseball. Obviously, they were nice enough to start the team and hire a coach. And obviously, I'm thankful for, being able to coach this team, but also being a fully funded club team is nearly unheard of, honestly. I mean, there's a lot of teams I talk to when we're playing, and they ask me, do I get paid and do we have a budget and all that? And yeah, I mean, being fully funded is awesome. I mean, our guys don't have to worry about anything really besides showing up and playing the game, which I think really helps out.
If it wasn't for Adrian College, after that first year of playing NCAA and ending up not playing, I could have transferred to where some of my friends were and everything, but Adrian actually kept me here. So Adrian College won, but 2 club, just because, I mean, going into that first year, we had those NCAA guys that were literally, after we won it, one of my roommates was like, I did not think you guys would ever do anything like that. And so kind of pride ourselves on that and showing like it meant something to us. And we showed out in the national championship. And so whether it was for Adrian College, whether it was for the club, whether it was for the guys that I started initially for in mindset, that's kind of why I did it. And I'm glad that first year was kind of just all at once. We were going into it very headstrong.
Boom.
Boom.
Boom, boom.